What's going on, everybody? It's that time again, the AllSooners podcast. I think it's episode 145.
145, postgame edition.
Postgame edition.
1:30 in the morning.
1:37 as we sit here, which is actually much earlier than it should be. We've been multitasking and trying to work while
We've been uploading videos.
uploading videos.
And writing stories.
I'm doing right now.
Yeah, I haven't even got to some other stuff. The wrap isn't even up yet, which is weird. They were doing the podcast without the wrap being up. It's kind of messing with my brain a little bit, but we're doing it to get the podcast while we're still coherent, somewhat. At again 1:37 in the morning here at the stadium. We're up in we're actually in the TV booth. This is where they do the TV broadcast. We just took it over. AllSooners is more important than that anyway.
So Bob Costas over there, Josh Callaway over here.
I don't know if Bob Costas has ever done a game at
Probably not.
at Gaylord Family.
Keith Jackson has.
Maybe once upon a time. Keith Jackson
Has sat in this booth.
Keith Jackson and the AllSooners crew, one and the same. One and the same. Oklahoma loses tonight. You know that. They lost 41-34 to Kansas State. My undefeated season prediction is dead. It looks
Four
horrible.
games into the season.
Now,
way to go, Josh.
I'm not going to make any excuses because I said my prediction was wrong, and I'll have to eat it and all that. This was the game, though, that was the hardest for me. And I even said that when I said if I was going to pick one game, it would be Kansas State. But I changed my mind and said they would win it. Now I wish I studied the other way. They lose to Kansas State tonight, 41-34. Stunning.
You want to know something?
Not saying that they lost, but the way they lost.
This doesn't look like a one-loss team. So
Not right
you
now.
won't get hung up on K-State. There will be others that look like losses if they play like they played tonight.
It's the difference. What a difference of 2 weeks. I mean, a week ago, we were in the Lincoln, the three of us, and we're talking about how, man, they played basically perfect. Almost nothing went wrong. And you fast forward a week against a much better opponent. And I wouldn't say everything was a disaster or something like that. That would be a little overstating, but certainly nothing was. They lost this game because of every part of this was a team loss. It wasn't offense was bad, defense was bad, coaching was bad, player. Everybody was just bad enough, basically, to lose this game. Is that kind of how you guys feel about it?
Yeah, I mean, when you run down the list, if I had told you guys before the game, Oklahoma was not going to turn the ball over, right? They're going to average 6.5 yards per carry. They were only going to give up one sack to this really good Kansas State defensive front. We all would have said, wow, Oklahoma's going to win this thing in a romp. And not only that, we're going to start recalibrating maybe our expectations for what this team could be. Instead, Oklahoma could not tackle Adrian Martinez. Guy had 4 touchdowns on the ground. Oklahoma defense back to making mediocre quarterbacks look like Heisman contenders. Deuce Vaughn ran wild, did everything he wanted. I said it in the wrap that you'll see at some point, but Isaiah Coe was the only guy who was willing to tackle Deuce Vaughn, and he's the only person in the Big 12 I've ever seen say, hey, Deuce Vaughn's like 5'2". Let me just ragdoll this guy, right? And couldn't get off the field on third down. Kansas State converted 7 third down attempts, including the massive backbreaker, the 3rd and 16, that wasn't just a conversion. It was a 55-yard, exclamation point from Adrian Martinez. Everything that could go wrong went wrong outside of just Dylan Gabriel coughing the ball up a whole lot.
I saw a team commit 11 penalties tonight that has been really good at holding its water when it comes to penalties. You saw all kinds of penalties too. Pre-snap, late hits, face masks. So a little bit of lack of discipline. I think Brent Venables said he was surprised by that. I talked to Deshaun White. He said he was surprised by the fact that these penalties were cropping up and there were mistakes. Dylan Gabriel, I'm sure, was surprised that he overthrew Drake Stoops twice on crucial downs. One would have been a 50-yard touchdown. The other one was a 4th down conversion. What was the sequence? You 4th down, you line up to go for it, you false start, you line up for a field goal, you false start again, you're back 10 yards from where you were. That's not the Oklahoma team that we've seen to this point. So many mistakes, so many unforced errors. I mean, all credit to Adrian Martinez and Deuce Vaughn and Chris Kleiman and his staff for having those guys ready. But Oklahoma wasn't ready for this stage tonight.
Yeah, I mean, everything you guys said. I mean, it was jarring. Again, it kind of, like I said, just a minute ago, not necessarily that they lost the game. You buy that. I mean, Kansas State is the OU kryptonite.
Yep.
You have to say that at this point. 5 times since 2012, which is like who you were saying you that almost doesn't sound right.
That can't be right.
But it is
5 times in 10 years.
And 3 out of 4. 3 out of 4 in recent history. K-State
since Chris Cloud
owns OU. I mean, 3 out of 4. That's jarring. Not many teams can say they've ever beat OU 3 out of 4. Just period. In the history of the sport, basically. That's what Kansas State has done 3 of the last 4 years. But on top of all of that, what makes it surprising, all that removed, is the fact that it was so offensively driven for Kansas State. Adrian Martinez had 304 total yards passing coming into the game today, but he ended up with 240.
234.
That's insane. He almost doubled his yardage tonight.
He was averaging 101 yards a game.
Yeah, he was running everywhere. Deuce Vaughn, OU has got no answer for him. That's just facts at this point. This is 3 times now that he's really hurt him big time. So usually we start with offense. Let's definitely start with defense tonight because, I mean, this was bad. I don't know. I mean, Brent Venables didn't even try to sugarcoat it. He was like, words that he used, like you said, terrible.
Horrible, horrific.
I think I tweeted, he said something along the lines of, I wasn't pleased with anything that the defense did tonight. I mean, he laid it down. The defense was really bad. And you gave up 41 points to an offense that's not very good, and he scored just 10 last week against Tulane.
Who lost today?
Tulane turned around and lost
Tulane
again. The transitive property is getting shredded this year. That whole Georgia, Oregon, BYU, Baylor, you get your head will get spinning looking into that one. But
I got the sense Brent Venables was really confused. But I'll give you this. He, in the 3 games that we've talked to him after wins, he's kind of talked in circles a little bit. And he talks in generic terms and really broad kind of scope of existential type football things. He wasn't that tonight. He was not that at all. He was one-liners. He was cut to the bone, cut to the quick, immediately get to the point. He said he just used them, like we said, words like horrific. There was a little bit of a clarity, I think, for Brent tonight. I think there was a little bit of clarity for the team that beating UTEP, beating Kent State, and beating Nebraska and Lincoln looks pretty good on paper, but you get out here on the field against a team like Kansas State, and all that stuff is thrown in the garbage. Nothing matters when you play a team like Kansas State that is so fundamental at what they do. The players said they're the most physical team they faced this year, obviously. And there was just, what else can you say? Brent Venables had no real answers other than he actually said the word, "I'm pissed" about all the stuff that happened out here on the field today. He's talking about penalties and, self-inflicted wounds and things like that, overthrown receivers and receivers that might have ran the wrong route. He was just real to the point about being unhappy, and now he said this loss will not define us, but how we react to this loss will define us.
We were really poor on 3rd down. It was just atrocious tackling, missed fits from the very beginning. We just looked very ill-prepared, and again, that starts with us on coaches. On other spots, he just said that they couldn't get off the field on 3rd down for a variety of reasons. Offense couldn't stay on the field. We were 4 of 13 on 3rd down conversions offensively. That just shows it for you. And basically, he rolled through the Rolodex, right? Every time they tried to dial up pressure, no one hit. No one got home. Oklahoma was not even really close to sacking Adrian Martinez except for maybe one play that I remember. Felt like every time they dialed up a blitz, K-State had protection rolled over to that side. They read it like a book. And again, like you mentioned, Oklahoma finally gets some momentum, and they let a special teams play happen. They finally, you're down a touchdown. It's late in the 4th quarter. You finally coax Kansas State into airing the ball out with a big pass down the field, which Adrian Martinez can't hit. He didn't hit any of them tonight, right? All of his big stuff was over the middle of the field to tight ends or underneath stuff where you didn't tackle. And then Justin Broyles has a pass interference, stuff like that at the wrong time.
Down.
Yeah, 3rd down. It was
that was a big one.
Extending drives. And again, no pass rush. Adrian Martinez, when they had him, Brent Venables talked about that you cage him in, right? There's a very specific technique to caging up a mobile guy on the ground. They didn't even get close. Everything about this defense you thought through 3 weeks, this was the exact opposite. And I said it again in the wrap. Different year, same crap for this Oklahoma defense. This looked like the Oklahoma defense, Brent Venables' defense that won RG3 a Heisman. This looked like Alex Grinch's defense that was hapless against Kansas State for 3 years. The worst of all of the last decade of Oklahoma defense showed itself tonight again.
Yeah, I mean, and was almost symbolic of the whole game, really, is right at the end there. They get that late score to make it 41-34, or 34-27, excuse me. And they're trying to get the ball back, and there's still time, and they get a penalty that helps them out, and there's a little glimmer of hope, and they get them into 3rd and 16. 3rd and 16. You get a stop, you get the ball back, you have a shot. And Adrian Martinez scrambles for what was that run? 55 yards, right down to the goal line. That's pretty much.
And he slides to stay in bounds to keep the clock going.
Yeah.
Smart
Play. Didn't go into the end zone. He was at like the 5, and he said, "Let me get down and save some time." Ended up scoring anyway, obviously, but he ended up using more clock down the road. But man, it's hard to fathom. It's hard to believe that that's the same team that we saw. And again, Nebraska stinks. That's been well documented, but they can move the ball. Casey Thompson is, him and Adrian Martinez are about the same. I would probably take Casey Thompson if you gave me.
I would too.
Both of them.
After tonight, not so much.
Yeah, and you turn around and this happens. It's so weird because at one hand it feels like it came out of nowhere, but the other hand it doesn't because it is K-State and they always seem to just have OU's number. I don't know. It's hard to know what to make of what an OU defense that had been so encouraging, week, and. This is, they just had no answers tonight at all. It felt, somebody, I can't remember if it was Eddie Ratto or somebody on the field referenced this kind of felt like the Army game of 18 in terms of that they just had no answer. It was just Deuce Vaughn, Adrian Martinez, Deuce Vaughn, Adrian Martinez.
It was, same plays. It was the same series of plays that K-State would run. Ryan and I were talking during the game. Looks like a little inside zone, goes for 7 yards. Another little inside zone goes for 8 yards. I thought this was a very common play in college football these days, what Kansas State was doing. Maybe they blocked it up a little bit. I'm not trying to sit here and be a technician. It was the same thing over and over again, and they had no answers.
Well, guys that, like Sean White, David Agwebu, Danny Sutsman, after the game, they're like, they didn't surprise us with any looks that we hadn't seen. It wasn't like they were sitting on the playbook against Tulane, all that stuff. And it'll be interesting, right? Go to the website, AllSooners.com, watch the Brent Venables postgame. It's a very different postgame than what you watched the last 5 years here in Norman, right? He was cutting at times in the criticism of both himself, the coaching staff, but the effort on the field, stuff like that. And you could tell, tonally, it was a different shift, right? After Brent Venables got done, I think Jerry Ramsey was sitting next to me and was like, well, that was different, right? From what you're used to seeing. That comes from the coaching staff, right? There's been so much talk about the leadership, the buy-in, all that stuff. This is what Deshaun White had to say after the game. And this is, in my opinion, everything that's been wrong with Oklahoma football for the last decade, 15 years, that arrogance that Bob Stoops let creep into the program to the later years where you had the hinky, OU's going to lose one of these games, figure out which one it is. This is what Deshaun White said. Garen Emig asked him, how different did Kansas State look tonight than what you saw on film against Tulane? Did they hide anything? This was Deshaun White's answer. Definitely not. They got the same. They're running the same things on film. It's just, they come to play Oklahoma. This is their Big 12 championship. This is their national championship every year. Like I said, we just got to execute better. And the tone that he said it in, it was so flippant. That's the problem. How many scrums have we been in the last 3 weeks? Leading up to Nebraska, Jaden Davis probably said it 5 million times. We're going to get everybody's game 7, we got to match it. We're going to get everyone's game 7, we got to match it. You can't be that team and then come out with this attitude of, well, everyone wants to play Oklahoma. It's their national championship. Okay, that's on you to go match that then. There's still that somewhere in this locker room, and that's why stuff like this happens. And it's going to take a lot of time to stamp that out, right? It's a lot of the same guys. I don't know how one coaching staff does it, but that's the problem. When you talk about leadership, you can have all the leadership you want. If that's going to be their attitude, this is going to happen again.
Yeah, it's going to happen again to a double-digit underdog. This was a 12.5-point underdog, Kansas State. And what you're saying is right. They go into the week knowing, well, that team's going to play their best against us because we're Oklahoma. That's fine. Let them play their best against you because you're Oklahoma. What's your answer to that? What's your response to that? What are you going to do about that from your side, from your perspective? They used to talk about that. Stoops used to talk about that all the time. Well, we get everybody's best shot. Okay. How about your best shot? When are you going to deliver somebody your best shot? Occasionally they would. Oftentimes they would slip up, like we saw tonight. And a game filled with mistakes. that we haven't seen yet. That's what I'm talking about. It's okay to slip up once in a while. It's not okay for everybody on the team to have glaring, massive mistakes like we saw tonight that leave the ball out there on the field instead of in the end zone, or leave guys laying on the ground while Deuce Vaughn is jitterbugging down the field, missing tackles. That kind of stuff can't happen en masse like we saw it tonight.
Yeah, let's talk about the mistakes, because that segues right into offense, where there was a lot of mistakes. Because I said this in the wrap also, on paper, in the box score, if you didn't watch this game, which everybody watching us did, but the casual fan, you're probably gonna look at the box score and say, Oklahoma was fine on offense. Offense wasn't the
550
issue.
yards, right?
Look at the yards. Look at Dylan Gabriel, 26 of 39, 330 yards, 4 touchdowns, no turnovers. Lots of different guys caught passes successfully. I mean, Gray, Farouk, Willis, Mims, all those guys had 4 or more catches. Weiss had a few big catches as well. Gray ran the ball incredibly well, over 7 yards a carry. So did Gabriel, actually scrambling out and stuff like that. On paper, the offense was fantastic. But if you watch this game, you know that penalties derailed a lot of drives, especially in the second half when they were trying to go tie the game or at least move closer, even take the lead in some places. And there was just missed chances for big plays. The most glaring, that Dylan Gabriel with Drake Stoops, that's going to haunt him.
Yep.
How could it not? Drake Stoops was all alone. I mean, he walks in for a touchdown. If you just put it anywhere near him, Drake Stoops, who's not a very demonstrative guy, after that throw was missed, he wanted to spike his helmet. He was like, I was walking in for a touchdown, and if you put it anywhere near me.
He threw up a surrender cobra as the ball's going over his
Great
head.
picture. I saw that. You threw that on the.
AllSooners.com.
Yeah,
Photo.
great photo. But
KJ.
But
Rush.
But yeah, I mean, there was a lot of that tonight, and again, especially on the offensive side. Even though they put up a fine point total, fine yard, didn't turn it over, but the opportunities were there to go win this game, and it just didn't happen. Which is something that Jeff Levy talked a lot about in his post game.
And the fourth down incompletion to Stoops, where he's again wide open.
Yeah, that was a big one.
Misses him wide. I mean, it's like he was sitting down in the zone, or there's a miscommunication or something. It's one of those things where the receiver was stopping, and Dylan Gabriel threw it on the line and was like, I thought you were still going. I thought I was stopping. Just some kind of miscommunication, because the balls that he was throwing tonight some of them were so far off. And, Brent Venables said Dylan Gabriel played good enough for us to win tonight.
Which is probably true.
Probably true. The point is, maybe Stoops did break the route off too soon. We don't know. They'll look at film. They'll decide who did what. Jeff Levy will break it down. The go route, was there something like, did he get held up on the break? Did he slip? I don't know. Again, watch film and we'll find out. We'll watch the replays and we'll find out. We're just doing this certified fresh right after the game, so we're trying to figure it out.
Haven't seen any highlights or anything.
Yeah. So it just makes you wonder if Brent is sticking up so much for his quarterback, and his quarterback is, Dylan actually said, I would argue that I didn't play good enough to win tonight. So interesting dichotomy there in the post-game press conference.
Well, I think Brent Venables we know this. Brent Venables is a defensive coordinator, right, at heart, defensive guy, and he is livid at how his defense played.
He's broken up that they gave up 41 tonight. Yeah.
I'm sorry.
500 yards.
You're the quarterback at Oklahoma. If you're not throwing into tight windows over the middle of the field, that's one thing. You can't keep missing these balls. Marvin Mims was wide open. Or no, sorry, it was Jalil Farouk in Lincoln. Missed that. Jalil Farouk was wide open against Kent State. Missed that. Didn't even throw that football because he didn't see it. Drake Stoops, you have to make those plays if you're going to be the quarterback of Oklahoma. That's what you have to do. If you want to put your name up there alongside the dudes that have statues outside the stadium, all that stuff, you have to be able to make those simple plays. Jeff Levy schemes those up. This is a really good Kansas State defense. If you're not going to take advantage of those plays, what are you going to get? Like, the offensive line gave you all the time you needed, and that's been, for me, the weakness of the offense so far. The weakness of the offense today was Dylan Gabriel. He missed massive plays, all this procedural stuff. He's supposed to be the guy, right? He's supposed to be the technician on the field. He's the extension of the coaching staff, all this stuff. They continue to have procedural stuff lining up at home specifically. Like, all that's on him. And jumping off sides, false starts like Anton Harrison on the field goal, that's not a Dylan Gabriel thing. But if you're going to be that guy, like, you've got to go out there and be the quarterback of Oklahoma. You haven't seen it yet. This team has won 3 games with Dylan Gabriel kind of in second gear, which is fine because you're played 2 group of 5 teams and a Nebraska team that quit the second that Dylan Gabriel ran 61 yards.
So, yeah, he's not Baker Mayfield. He's not Kyler Murray. He's got to be that guy, though. And as he using his words, the guy that his teammates look up to, and the guy that his teammates respect and gravitate to, however he phrased it. He didn't feel like he was that tonight. I think he thinks he let the team down. He let himself down. He let down the legacy, all that stuff. He let down Hawaii. You know what I mean? I mean, he just walks out of this game tonight feeling awful about those passes he missed. Having said all that, if you don't buy the Dylan Gabriel, what I'm sitting here saying about him, it's not hype. It's leftovers, I guess. I don't know. Stay off social media, because the stuff that I saw just waiting for Venables tonight and to come into the interview room was vicious. Dylan Gabriel needs to stay off social media. He's not the guy. The experiment has failed. That's the nice stuff. Those are the ones that I came up with that were nice.
Well, I was gonna say, how
It's
much does this feel like? It's funny. Time is a flat circle. How much does this feel like 1 year ago, basically, exactly almost, because it was the 4th game of the year last year, whenever Oklahoma plays West Virginia, night game. Then they won that game, but they scored 16 points. And that's when the we want Caleb chance started with Spencer Rattler, where Spencer Rattler, he was not the problem, or not the sole problem of why that offense was not very good, but he was not making it any. He wasn't playing well. He wasn't doing himself or the team any favors either. Feels very similar. I mean, there's a lot. They didn't lose this game because of Dylan Gabriel, but
he didn't do anything to win it.
Yeah, exactly.
No, he didn't do enough to win it for him. That's the way I look at it.
Yeah, the big difference
There
is
are calls for Davis Bevel.
Wow.
You know what?
That's
something else I want to say.
We've seen Davis Bevel throw, 2 passes?
All OU fans, and I think most sane OU fans know this already, there is not another option on this roster. There's not.
Caleb Williams ain't walking through that door.
There is not another option on this roster. I promise you there is not. I'm not just trying to dump on the other quarterbacks, but Dylan Gabriel is far and away the best quarterback on the roster right now and the most ready to play games.
People are talking about the transfer portal right now. Like getting somebody out of the portal, bringing them into Oklahoma, and having them start next week against TCU.
I stressed
That's
that a lot.
what I saw tonight.
In the summer, too. I stressed that a lot, and we talked about it a lot leading up to the season. Keep this dude healthy, because you don't have any other options. So
Right.
I promise you, benching Dylan Gabriel is not going to happen. And I don't even know what it would take. He'd have to do 9 picks. And he hasn't thrown any. He hasn't turned the ball over once.
Well, that's kind of... First off, we didn't have the student section pumping any of that, but the difference between the Rattler situation, right, and this is that the line was there for you tonight, right? The O-line played well enough for you to be there. Your receivers are getting separation. What Oklahoma fans are asking Dylan Gabriel to do is hit Drake Stoops when he's wide open, already behind the defense.
That's right.
That's what he didn't do. What they asked him to do was hit Drake Stoops on a 5-yard pass when he's got that little out for a first down. That's what he didn't do. He didn't hit Marvin Mims. He threw a 50-50 ball up toward Mims. That was the closest thing to an interception. It kind of hit off Mims' bicep. That was in the second quarter.
I think so.
Yeah, first quarter. It was coming down toward the north end zone. Then the fourth quarter, there was the ball that he just overthrew Marvin Mims. That would have been not a touchdown like the Drake Stoops thing, but it would have been a big play. Marvin Mims was open. He's had the protection. The receivers are open. The running game was working tonight because Jeff Lebby was very intelligent and said, we're just going to run at the perimeter and hit you with a few runs back in between the tackles just to keep you honest. The missed plays on offense were squarely on Dylan Gabriel. There weren't too many of them, but they were crucial.
4 or 5 that would have swung the balance of this game for sure, especially the long one to the Stoops. That's tying it up right there. That's a touchdown.
Yeah, and it changes the complexion of the second half too, because that opening drive in the second half, which was derailed by a holding penalty on Chris Murray, then false start, stuff like that, which that's not on Gabriel, but suddenly you go from Oklahoma's in a hole to that was for Oklahoma to go take the lead. If one of those things happen, maybe they're a little bit more settled in. Maybe the offensive line doesn't have a few of those procedural penalties because they're settled. All of a sudden you're up. If you get a stop, then Kansas State has to throw the ball on board. Not that it mattered because the OU defense couldn't do anything right tonight, but that stuff like that changes the complexion of the game. The plays that were there to be had were on Dylan Gabriel.
Aside from this being Kansas State's Super Bowl every year, right? Do you get the sense that Oklahoma plays tight against these guys?
Maybe. I don't know. It's different. It's weird because it's different guys.
Well, this is like a whole different roster
This
outside of them.
transcends. This transcends coaches.
40% of the
staff.
roster never played in a Sooner uniform before. Is that what we were told?
Yeah.
Something to that extent. Yeah, I don't know.
Different coaching staff.
Something that is clearly an
Weird.
issue, and Jeff Levy stated as much, is is getting off to better starts. I mean, you can't. And I thought that too. Even if they found a way to win tonight, I distinctly thought I need to bring this up later. You cannot get down a touchdown, 2 scorers, not have any offense in the first quarter. Like, you can't do that every week and win that way. They did it obviously against Kent State. Didn't score until right before halftime. Nebraska wasn't that severe, but still you went down 7-0, had a nothing first drive. You did it again tonight, 14-0 with a couple of empty drives. I mean, you're not going to consistently win, especially against good teams, doing that. And Jeff Levy acknowledged that. I don't know what they got to do to get off to better starts,
Those
but
possessions,
it's like the
too.
Lincoln Riley third quarter issue has moved into the start of the game, basically.
Those offensive, the Oklahoma offensive possessions too were just shockingly short. 109, 106, 52 seconds, 120, 109. Hey, 328, and they got a field goal out of that one. 318, and they got another field goal out of that one. Those were the longest possessions of the night, and they got field goals. Then they put together a 324 at the end and a 123 to score those last 2 touchdowns to Braden Willis. Great game by Braden Willis, by the way. But, I mean, tempo, which is what we were told all through August, right? Tempo. Tempo might be a firecracker in your hand. You know, you think you're going to throw it, that thing goes off, all of a sudden you're missing some fingers. That's what tempo is doing to this team, at least early on in games. They're able to come back and slow it down and do some different things in the second half and third quarter and that kind of thing. But early on in games, it's blowing up in their face.
Well, you asked too, is this Oklahoma team playing tight, especially against K-State? I'm not sure, but a ton of credit to Chris Kleiman and that staff and what they did. They go out there and they win the toss, and what do? They don't defer. They say, you know what, we want to receive, because they know if that first drive goes according to plan for them, you're probably putting a touchdown on the board, because that's what Kansas State has done, it feels like, every year against Oklahoma since Kleiman got there, specifically. And then Oklahoma has a first down in 2 plays right on their first drive, and that's when the negative plays start happening. And then they know, okay, if you just force one stop, it's going to snowball, and now suddenly Oklahoma's 14 points behind. I think that while Oklahoma may not play tight, that's what Kansas State has all that confidence that they're going to do against this Oklahoma team, because that's everyone on that roster. That's only the success that they've known against the Oklahoma defense is that we're just going to gash them, and they're not physical enough in the run game. And that's something that Brent Venables said again tonight, is that for all the talk about physicality, toughness, Schmitty built, they weren't physical enough at any point this evening.
On the bright side, ran the ball very well again. Eric Gray, that guy's running back 1. I think he reclaimed that. There was a little teetering publicly, never within the team. Jeff Levy's been very consistent in that. But he's balling last couple of games, and he tried to almost will them back in this game himself, especially in that third quarter. They came out of the locker room and just were feeding him. You almost feel like you need to give him the ball more. What did he end up? He ended up at
115.
16 carries for 114.
Yeah.
Longest of 25. It's almost like, man, you're going 7 yards a carry. Ride him some more. I know that might seem a little silly, especially at times it seems like he gets a little run happy, but he threw it more than he ran it tonight. Talking about Jeff Levy, Eric Gray is kind of getting what he wants. That's the biggest bright spot right now, at least offensively, for me.
And if you add Marcus Major's carries in there, it's 25 carries for 151 yards. That's what you would want out of your, All-American type running back. Those are the kind of numbers. So I think it's a good balance right now. I think Major could get a few more carries. I think Eric Gray could get a few more carries. But if you do that, then you're taking away from your quarterback, who before tonight, what was his high? Like 25 pass attempts in a game in his first 3 games. It's not very much. Tonight he threw the ball 39 times. There's a reason for that. They were behind the whole fourth quarter. But yeah. 4 touchdowns for Dylan Gabriel, 330 yards. I mean, looked like a good statistical game, like Josh was saying. But if you can't sustain that because of you're behind the chains because of penalties early in possessions, that's gonna wreck whatever game plan you have. And I know Jeff Levy probably didn't count on going out there today running that tempo on 2nd and 15 because somebody jumped off sides. To be fair.
Yeah, and And if you're looking for bright sides of the run game too, Oklahoma's offensive line gave you what you wanted. We mentioned it. Only gave up 1 sack. Only gave up 1 quarterback hurry. This is a really good Kansas State defensive line. Dylan Gabriel wasn't running for his life. There are 2 or 3 plays where he's kind of having to evade the pocket. Guess what? That's football, right? Like, against even a bad defense, you're going to have 2 or 3 plays where Gabriel has to flush out of the pocket, do anything like that. So the line looks like it's come together, and this is an Oklahoma team that, again, if they take their chances, they could have easily matched the 40 points on the board, right, against a really good Kansas State defense. The other side of that, though, is that when it's all self-inflicted or most of it's self-inflicted, it's self-inflicted stuff that, like, we've seen hints of false starts through the first 2 games, not in Lincoln. We've seen hints of Dylan Gabriel missing a touchdown pass a game, just about. He's just about averaging, leaving a touchdown a game on the field. Yep. We've seen hints of the defense having, you had a roughing the passer in game 1, you had a targeting last game against Nebraska with Rashawn White, you got a couple of crucial stuff like, okay, that's all fixable, but you're a fourth of the way through the season, a third of the way through the season, it hasn't been fixed yet. So
really all cropped up tonight.
Yeah.
All the little things that they've been doing wrong in games leading up to tonight, it all happened tonight. It all manifested. So that's what's really frustrating for Venables.
Well, I guess I'll ask the same question I asked on the wrap, which will be on AllSooners.com at some point in this wee hours of the night here. Where do they go from here in terms of just so everything was so great the first few weeks, right? I mean, they bounced back. That Kent State game, the first half was ugly, but they finished so strong. You know, people kind of throw that away. They kill Nebraska. Then you come and do this, where it's not like we've seen OU play worse on this field even just last year than what they did tonight. But you lose at home. It's not good. The defense struggles a lot. Obviously, and it is true, it's completely cliche, but it is true in that everything they could hope to accomplish is still completely in front of them. I mean, you can still, obviously, one loss is not going to sink you in anything, winning the Big 12, even making the playoff or any of that stuff. But where do they go from here in terms of they got TCU next week, and then you got Texas, and then you have a Kansas team that is weirdly good, apparently. There's nobody in the Big 12 that right now is, I don't know if anybody in the Big 12 is bad. Everyone in the Big 12 looks at least reasonably good.
Everybody's a tough out.
Everybody, there's no gimme game. Even Kansas, West Virginia, I thought was maybe that team. Not that Virginia Tech is any good, but they go into Blacksburg and just crush them on Thursday. So, Big 12 is pretty deep and more balanced than maybe it's ever been, at least recently. Where does Oklahoma go from here? What do they have to do to button this up? Can it be fixed, like we were talking about? Is it actually fixable, or is this serious problems and this team's going to lose a few more games?
It can be fixed, yes. Will it be fixed? I think they're going to lose a few more games. What I saw tonight would lead me to believe they're going to lose a few more games. Not sure who to. Texas sure looked silly today, didn't they? And I think
Baylor's
it's like
still really good. Oklahoma State.
Baylor goes on the road and beats Iowa State fairly emphatically. I had to hold on at the very end, but they had a two-score lead in the fourth quarter.
Right.
Where do they go? They go to practice on Monday, go to film room, and they break down all the things that went wrong. They go back out on a Tuesday and try to work on those things. That's where they go next. After that, it's TCU on Saturday, 11 a.m. kickoff. We found out tonight, 11 a.m. kickoff.
Sweet.
At least the Big 12 posted on its weekly schedule 11 a.m. kickoff. I didn't ever see the announcement, but they posted 11 a.m. So that's a tricky one. Are they in between quarterbacks right now? Duggan had a big game today, beating SMU, but is Chandler Morris supposed to be back about right now?
Yeah,
I don't know what's going on with their
Possibly,
quarterback spot. Yeah.
It's that could get tricky. It's down there in Fort Worth, so yeah. Where do they go next, Josh? Practice on Monday, Fort Worth on Saturday, and go from there. One game at a time.
Yeah.
It's a lousy, lame way of saying it, but that's what this team. That's what we found out tonight that this team has to approach.
Yeah, I think you saw that they've got like the margin of error that's usually there by just virtue of being more talented or having one of the best quarterbacks in the country, all that stuff. Not there, right? The offense has shown you that it can be explosive. It's also shown you that it's more than willing to take one of the roughneck shotguns and just shoot off both feet. And so they've got to be a team that this Oklahoma team, if they want to make it back to Arlington, which is a huge ask coming out of this game, right?
Yeah, a lot of work too.
They gotta live at 4 to 5 penalties max a game. They've got to live with this 0 or 1 turnovers, right? And the defense is going to have to find some way, somehow, to tackle, to fit the run, all that stuff. Like, the defense has got a long way to go because now the question becomes, how many times the last decade have we seen they're fine, they have one bad performance, then mentally they can't pull it back out of the ditch, right? And then they just become... It becomes a month of bad defensive football. So that's going to be the big test, I think, for Brent Venables and this coaching staff is, okay, you did a great job rebuilding the confidence in that group before spring ball was even over, all that stuff. They just put a stinker out there. Are they able to get past it? Are they able to find a way to come back and play to the level they were playing for the first 3 weeks? No, by the way, you have to stamp out that crappy attitude that, sorry to Sean White, he just happened to be the name attached to it with your, well, that's their national championship. Okay. You need to have some sort of give a rip yourself and match that intensity. It's something Oklahoma didn't do tonight.
Boy, dude, I'm just like replaying the game in my head, and that last drive too, not the very last drive, but the drive that I referenced over the 3rd and 16. Remember earlier in that drive, had the dump off to Deuce Vaughn, and it's not some pretty dump on Deshaun White. He actually played pretty well, I thought, overall, and he played great last week before he got ejected. He's got Deuce Vaughn dead to rights. Would have been a big loss. Would have set up a 3rd and long, and just like you said, just whiffed. It was kind of like that was kind of the night right there. Like it was right there for you to make a big play and didn't do it.
We made the point in our Friday and Saturday coverage that Oklahoma needed to play great on special teams, or at least draw even on special teams. They did not. They drew even on the 2 field goals. Both teams kicked 2 field goals. 3 of Michael Turk's 5 punts were touchbacks. Okay, that's a little bit of a drawback.
Trayvon West right here. Yep. Had a chance to pin him.
Yep. And then the punt return or the kickoff returns. Malik Knowles takes his 58. Eric Gray takes his 10. I was just looking at that. That's that hidden yardage Brent Venables was talking about on Tuesday that Kansas State excels at. They're going to beat you on special teams, and then they're going to try and draw even on offense and defense, and that's exactly what happened tonight. K-State wins by 7.
Other than when Knowles fair caught it like the 5. Yeah. That was weird.
Well, I was going to say, not to mention that Billy Bowman had a really nice kickoff return, and Braden Willis, who's been maybe the most reliable player on this team through 4 weeks, Braden Willis is the one that was called for the holding flag that basically erased you went from Billy Bowman really having a good kickoff return to now Oklahoma starting from like their own 10-yard line.
It was Billy Bowman, not Eric Gray. I think I said Eric Gray, right? Yeah. So, Billy Bowman, thank you.
Yeah, I mean,
you don't spring that though without that holding penalty apparently.
True.
It ties back to what we said at the very beginning, which was and they're playing the highlights right here above us, right as we're talking on ESPN.
Team loss.
Team loss, exactly. That's where I was going. I mean, special teams left something to be desired tonight. Defense, obviously. But the defense, even as bad as defense was tonight, and it was bad, it gave the offense multiple chances in that second half to, okay, here's your chance, go score and tie this thing up or whatever, and the offense couldn't oblige. And Brent Venables really said it perfectly in postgame, where he talked about, here we were all week talking about complimentary football, and tonight, we couldn't pick up, one side couldn't pick up for the other all game long. It really is. It couldn't be much different than that Nebraska game. I mean, 1 week ago we were in the press box there in Lincoln, saying the exact opposite of everything we just said. Basically.
6-5 at Oklahoma over the last 30 seasons, best record of any team during that spring.
They're above 500 in Norman. That's insane.
The other stats up there.
What a mind blower.
Only team to win consecutive trips to Norman, and they've done it twice: 2012, 2014.
Oh God.
2020, 2022.
Kansas State, man. Again, it spans coaches, obviously lots of players, venues. It doesn't matter at all. Kansas State just has the secret sauce to beat Oklahoma.
Eric Gray put his thumb on it on Tuesday. Eric Gray was like, "It's been a great rivalry." One of those things. That's how Eric Gray sees it, as a big rivalry game.
I'm starting to question how last year's team, with all their warts, went into Manhattan and won. How did that happen?
Well, it was save the late kickoff return. It was like a comfortable 2-touchdown.
Yeah, pretty comfy win.
We had all of our stuff written, and then
Rattler played well.
Yeah, and then I looked at Hoover and I was like, "Uh-oh, got to rewrite this thing." The big black mark last year was that Caleb Williams couldn't catch a snap.
Right, man. That was before we really got into the meat of last year. Last year was insane. Do we want to do players of the game?
Yeah, Adrian Martinez.
Adrian Martinez.
And Deuce Vaughn. Yeah.
Adrian Martinez balled out.
I saw somebody say on Twitter that David Agwebu is just a warm body. He had 15 tackles tonight.
Yeah.
They ran at him a lot.
He took a lot of bad angles, too.
He did take a lot of bad angles. But everybody did. We were just watching that Adrian Martinez 55-yarder. DJ Graham was on the field, missed. Deshaun White was on the field, missed. 3 or 4 other guys had their hands on him and missed.
15 tackles is a lot. The inability to ever get a sack tonight was really glaring.
Yeah.
It felt like, man, they could just get him behind the chains at least
So,
once.
you remember Colin Schlee stepped out of the back of the end zone, or he would have avoided that safety?
Yeah.
A couple of times last week, like 4 times. Casey Thompson escaped and got out, and I think the backup quarterback that came in, Chuba Purdy, came in and escaped a couple of sacks. This is something that we've seen over the previous games, that a quarterback, yes, Oklahoma leads the nation in tackles for loss, and they're up there top 10 in sacks, but they're leaving so much out there on the field, and they did it against Kent State, they did it against Nebraska, and now they've done it to their detriment against Kansas State.
What do we think of the very bold decision to do the light show on the Braden Willis touchdown with like 30 seconds left?
I thought they were going to come back. Not that time.
I'm talking about just the
158. No, it was 3rd and 16. 3rd and 16, and K-State calls timeout, and Martinez takes off. Before that play, they did the LEDs, and everybody got their phones out.
It was
so
as
cool.
loud as it's ever been.
That was
in
very
games that I've been.
energetic.
Whenever they picked up, that makes it even more tough. Is that the crowd was fantastic.
And he just came out and said, "Nah,
Don't care.
I'm out of here."
The crowd was
impressive.
tremendous. The atmosphere was really, really good from the start. And yeah, to your point, in that break, it's a timeout, like you said, about 2 minutes left, 3rd and 16. They were doing the lights during that whole break. I don't know how much of that was on the broadcast, but they were doing that lights that whole break, and the crowd was just going nuts that whole time. Just, we're going to get this stop, we're going to get the ball back, and then you let them go for 55. It's really just
Cell phone flashlights come out. It was impressive.
It was as good of an OU home atmosphere in a while.
Adrian Martinez was more impressive.
When do you think it's going to hit this defense that on Selman Brothers Day, the day that the Selman Brothers statue's unveiled,
they threw up
they put an absolute laugher out there.
We overlooked it, but they did the light show thing when they score with 30 seconds left in a game that was over. You realize the insanity of that? I was like, no way they do the lights here, and they did the lights.
Let's go get this onside
It was like
kick.
flashing lights in a half-full stadium with players that weren't even excited about the touchdown because the game was essentially over.
Well, we know.
It was tough seeing.
Sources, these lights were not easy to get here. They've been working on that for a bit. Doesn't matter if it's kickoff, doesn't matter if it's the light show in between the 3rd and 4th quarter, doesn't matter if it's a garbage time touchdown that only serves to make the box score look better for everyone that was sifting through trying to find the late night Pac-12 stream. You got to use those things if you're going to spring for them.
Also, they don't have colors yet available. I was told that in the story that I did this week on the LEDs.
I don't know where the red
As of
is.
right now, it's just white lights.
I was wondering where the red is.
Yep.
Like, how does it?
Georgia's got red on theirs.
Supply
Alabama's
chain.
got red
Supply
on
chain.
That's it. The red bulbs are out.
So are the alternates.
Oh yeah, that too.
Yeah, that whole concept.
Did you think they were going to have them tonight?
No.
Okay.
That's why we never ran a story on it.
Well, but you had the story ready to go, right?
Well, for the throwbacks.
For the throwback.
We talked about that on
Yeah.
the midweek show.
There wasn't going to be a new alternate this week.
Okay.
Right. That's what we were talking about.
Yeah, Ryan and I both, from completely separately, had heard a lot about wearing throwbacks this week. And it didn't happen, obviously. They even tweeted earlier. Did you notice how the OU football account tweeted? What did they tweet? They tweeted like
classic threads or something
like they almost like acknowledged the rumors that they were going to wear something.
Yep.
I think they may have pivoted. I think there was so much buzz that they said, we'll show you talking about our uniform. Because I had heard from really strong that they were going to wear alternate. Not alternates, but throwbacks.
I was going to say, on the bright side, Kansas State brought tearaway jerseys, it looked like.
Yeah,
so
from the 70s.
They were honoring the Selman brothers by just running away from tacklers that just thought that putting a hand out was going to be good enough.
Maybe throwbacks to the Selman days, the Selman era would have been good for tonight. Maybe that would have made them play like K-State as their Super Bowl. That's what needs to happen. They need to get Kansas State and look at Kansas State like, well, this is our Super Bowl, guys. We might not win another game all year, but if we beat K-State, that's our Super Bowl. That's what needs to happen, Ryan.
Yeah, clearly.
Maybe they'll get another crack at him in Arlington. Who knows? We'll have to see how the season shakes out.
Woo, this team's got a long way to go to get to Arlington.
As of it sits today,
We can drive by it next week.
it's very true. We'll get twice. Texas the week after. We get to just burn up that down to DFW. That Pauls Valley area where it goes on to one lane is the worst.
Already dreading it.
Seriously, it's the absolute worst. I'll be doing it in the dead of the night because it's another 11 a.m. Sweet. Can't wait. Not as bad as last week, but it'll still be tough. And then Texas at 11 a.m. also, I assume, it hasn't been announced yet, but, whatever. That's all I got. Any final thoughts on this one? I mean, we've talked about it obviously at length here.
No,
My
read
main
the Selman
thing,
story. It was pretty cool to cover that.
Yeah.
That was cool.
yeah, definitely do that. Lots there for you in AllSooners. Yeah, all I got is Kansas State's got the juice. Never bet against Kansas State against OU. Apparently, 3 out of 4. It's crazy. Absolutely crazy. 2 in a row here in Norman. So, AllSooners.com, place to be. Reaction from all the coaches and players. A wrap that we alluded to, as well as game stories from these guys, game highlights, more stuff than that. AllSooners.com. I'm tired. It's 2:23 a.m., which again is not as bad as it could have been. I still think the Bedlam one last year was later than this.
Yeah.
It was really late in Stillwater.
The OSU people were still in the press box waiting for us.
They
to
were
finish.
Yeah,
did
just
not
like-
it. OU
like-
people, the OU staff, they just leave.
They get
Yeah,
their
they're
work
just like,
done and
we're
they're
out.
But OSU, I guess they have
We
to
don't
stay.
need supervision here. We need supervision in Stillwater.
Yeah, they were shooting us daggers. I think Baylor was the same. Didn't they have somebody waiting with us too? I can't
I
remember.
think so.
Well, that was.
We'll find out. Yeah, next week TCU.
Well, Baylor's rolling through. That was the week that Texas Tech attempted like the asinine 70-yard field goal to win it or whatever. It felt like, and we were all just sitting up there in the press box, just like, okay, I understand that you want us to leave, but look at how long a field goal Tech is about to roll
out.
out
It was
there.
like the Lane Kiffin, Sebastian Janikowski from his own 30. Man, yeah. Well, I don't know what else to say. We're rambling at this point. I'm tired, and Oklahoma loses. So thank you if you found us. Yeah. Shout out to the guy who said he would listen to the postgame show on the way out. Didn't catch his name, but thanks for listening.
I got one on the way in. Shout out to that guy too. What's up?
I had I didn't ever tell you guys the opener against whoever they played, UTEP. I had a security guy stop me. It was like, "You Josh Callaway?" I was like, "Yes." He's like, "I love your guys' work."
Yes.
I was like, "Well, thank you."
That's what
It's
we
like,
want.
Thank you.
Maybe that's why they just leave us, because the security's like,
We're not just
no.
talking-
Yeah.
yeah.
They're like, leave them. I gotta listen to that pod tomorrow morning.
We're not just talking to the void, which is nice to know from time to time. Our Nebraska postgame podcast. You would know better than me, but I think it was like the most viewed on YouTube I'd ever seen.
Yeah, it was a big one.
It was a big one. So I appreciate everybody who finds us. Tell your friends about us.
We're the hardest working bunch out there, guys.
We're the last ones in the stadium every week. That should not go overlooked. As we just churn through all our videos and everything else. But we do it because it's a labor of love.
Well, shoot, it's 2:25. I've still got the story that's gonna be up on the site at 7 a.m. and 2 more post games to put in. So I'm not leaving it here till like 3:30.
I gotta edit the wrap still, which I'll do. I was editing highlights during this entire show, so I was working, multitasking. So that's it. We'll get out of here. Thank you so much for watching. Again,
Listening.
tons of and listening, of course. I get used to the post game since we're actually sitting here in front of a camera. I just think of it purely as a video part, even though it actually is literally a podcast. Thank you for listening and watching, however you find us. We'll be back, obviously, on Wednesday, normal time, wrapping up our final thoughts on this one after we get to rewatch and stuff like that. And, of course, wrapping up the Brent Venables press conference and the player availabilities, all that good stuff. And looking ahead to next week, which is TCU in Fort Worth. So we'll be going back on the road next Friday to M&G Carter. First time for our crew to go there and do all of our stuff. So looking forward to that. Their post game is like a broom closet. Actually, no, that's Texas Tech. TCU, they do it. It's like, at least they used to. It's like in a hallway. It's the worst sound you've ever. Literally in a hallway. People are just walking by. You know what I'm talking
I
about?
can't remember that.
It's like they put up a curtain like that does anything, and it's just literally full volume. I remember that it ain't great unless they've updated it. So that should be fun.
I'm like Gandalf. I have no memory of this.
We'll complain about that next Saturday. So we'll talk about that then. Thank you so much for listening. Be sure and catch Wednesday's show. Like I said, wrapping up this one, looking ahead to TCU. You can catch that one, all the podcasts on iTunes, Spotify, Google, iHeart, wherever you get your podcasts. If you have an Amazon-enabled device, just say, Alexa, play the AllSooners podcast. Also posted on our website, allsooners.com. Click on the playlist on your phone, your tablet, or your computer. And again, you can watch all these shows as well on Hoover's YouTube page, John Hoover Media.
Please rate, share, and subscribe.
Yes, do that. Even comment, too. People come for our heads. And
Yes.
You can't win. If we rip on OU, we're hating. If we give OU love, we're homers. There's no winning, but we appreciate the interaction anyway. Thank you so much for everybody who listens and watches. It really does mean a lot. So there you have it. That's it. We'll catch you Wednesday. Wrapping up the press conference, looking ahead to TCU. We're going to go get out of here in a little bit and go to bed. That's all for now. For Ryan Chapman and John Hoover, I'm Josh Callaway. We'll catch you guys next time.